we have election results, the Graham Platner sexting scandal, and riots in New Jersey. All that and more right now. Welcome to episode 62 of the Republic Brothers podcast. He's Matt, I'm Mike, and today is June 3rd, 2026. Please hit that subscribe button now so you don't miss our next episode on Monday.
Let's start with the news that just broke. I'll mention this first as it's not a surprise, but doesn't really mean much. The House of Representatives voted 215 to 208 to withdraw troops from using military force against Iran without congressional approval. This is a rare defeat for Trump, with Republican Representatives Thomas Massie, Warren Davison, Brian Fitzpatrick, and Tom Barrett voting with Democrats. You will notice a trend with those names. They have either lost their re-election bid or in a tough fight for it. Massie was a topic of conversation within the last few episodes, so no surprise to see him vote against Trump. However, this really is just a symbolic vote, as they did not have a supermajority, so this resolution would have to be signed by the president for it to become law. There is exactly zero chance Trump would sign this, so it will go nowhere.
Yeah, this is basically their version of virtue signaling. It literally means nothing. Like when my kids try to tell me that they voted and it's 2 against 1, so I lose. But not in this house. My vote counts as 50.
I thought you were going to say your house isn't a democracy. It's a dictatorship.
Well, it's a fake democracy. We make it look like a democracy.
Russian democracy.
All right, well, let's move on to our main stuff here. We wanted to throw in that stuff just because it just happened. There was quite a few election results that we're getting today, that were going on yesterday, but I think the biggest one was the race for Los Angeles mayor. That's also the one that we've been mentioning a lot lately with Spencer Pratt and Karen Bass. Incumbent Mayor Karen Bass advanced to the general election, but she did fall short of the 50% majority needed to win the race outright. That means she is officially being pulled into a November runoff, and at this point, it looks like it's going to be against Spencer Pratt. Last I checked a few hours ago, they had about 60% of the votes in. Spencer Pratt had roughly 30% of the vote, and Nithya Raman had 22%.
They do love their mail-in ballots in California, so counting takes a long time for them. As you mentioned, it looks like Spencer Pratt got enough votes to get to the runoff. When this comes down to a one-on-one battle for mayor, will the Liberals actually go against Karen Bass? I have my doubts. Pratt has done a good job running as an outsider, and let's hope that is enough to get Karen Bass out. LA needs it.
Yeah, I actually think that Spencer Pratt has a chance to win in November. Just based off an interview I saw with him the other day, where he was talking about who's backing him and his donors, and saying that, they were all Democrats, and there's actually Democrats in the city that want to see him win and want Karen Bass out of there. I think he has a chance.
I do think he has a chance. The way you get Republicans in deep blue cities as mayors is when things are really bad. LA very well could be at that point.
I think they are. I've seen a lot of backlash on Karen Bass. Now, I don't know if it's just because of the election, and obviously that's what Spencer Pratt and his supporters want us to see. But I do think there is a chance, and a lot of people that are betting on like Kalshi and like those kinds of things, his chance to win is steadily rising. And there's a lot of people that are basically betting on him on this market thing to win. What really bothers me, though, about our whole system is how it seems like politicians quit doing their job when they're up for re-election. You ever notice that? They stop doing what they were elected to do and spend all their time just trying to keep the job. Look at Karen Bass. She's out campaigning and just trying to smear Spencer Pratt and spending all of her time in front of ballot boxes instead of actually doing her job and being the mayor of Los Angeles. Now, I'm only singling her out because that's kind of the biggest race that we're seeing on TV right now. But it's not just her. It's everyone who is the incumbent in an election. And now that she knows that she's headed to a runoff with Spencer Pratt, and she's seen that he might be able to steal some votes, she's going to work even harder on her campaign from now until November.
Hey, that's nothing compared to Mamdani starting his re-election campaign already.
Yeah.
They all do it. Some still get work done when they run for re-election, but many don't. It also is annoying to me how often we see political ads for 6 months to a year before the election even happens. You can't get away from them. They are there for sporting events. Every YouTube video has them. And that is not the fault of the content creators. They have no control over the ads that play before their videos.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not trying to single her out because I know it's not just her. I mean, you mentioned Mom Donnie's doing it.
Both sides do
it. Both sides do it. Whoever is seeking re-election will abandon what they're supposed to be doing so that they can try to get re-elected. We would be seeing Tim Walz do the exact same thing in Minnesota if he were running for re-election. In fact, he was doing it up until the point when all this fraud came out and he had to drop out.
Yeah, and in the other election for California, Republican Steve Hilton led the candidates for the California race for governor. No candidate got close to 50%, so Steve Hilton and Xavier Becerra will go to a runoff election. With all the other Democrats out of the way, can a Republican beat a Democrat in a statewide election when it's one-on-one? Hilton got the most votes, but the Democrats didn't exactly have a great candidate in this race. California, though, like LA, would be wise to vote for Steve Hilton. He is the deregulation candidate, and that is exactly what California needs.
Yeah, I think they would be wise to vote for Steve Hilton. I saw a map earlier that said, or was illustrating, that California is a red state. Just as we've mentioned before, there are no blue states. There are all red states with blue cities.
That's how every state is.
Yeah, so hopefully they can... They need a change of pace, to be honest. Same thing in LA, they need a change. That state is being run into the ground.
Yeah, there's so much red tape. You can't build anything. That's part of why Spencer Pratt is where he is. Karen Bass completely mismanaged the Palisades fire response. And Democrats in California, for whatever reason, love the Green New Deal and the Green New Initiative, and they're completely unaware that energy prices are sinking them.
Yeah, I hope he wins, and I have the same feeling that I have with Spencer Pratt, is that Democrats will just fall in line. That's the only thing that makes me think that they can't win. And the reason I say that is because of the next topic that we have, where you literally have someone who sounds like is a disgusting human being, yet people are still telling you to go vote for him. The latest firestorm involves sexually explicit text messages from Graham Platner that he sent to other women at the beginning of his marriage to Amy Gertner. The story broke because Platner's wife originally disclosed the text to a campaign aide during the internal vetting and opposition research process in 2025. Well, it leaked, and now the campaign is pointing fingers at a former senior official for betraying their privacy. The campaign is aggressively using the good marriage/counseling defense. Platner's wife released a 5-minute video defending their marriage, admitting she was angry but attacking the leak as shameful gossip. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know that I would call it gossip if it's true, and you're the one who told somebody else about it. To my knowledge, no one knew about it but them two. She told someone else, and then, of course, those people leaked it out.
Someone wanted it out there. We always say when something leaks, ask why. My guess is some of the campaign staffers realized how bad of a human being he was, and they wanted this out there.
Yeah, and as we said, this person was a former senior official. So, obviously something happened. Platner himself admitted that he caused the issue, but he's trying to pivot, saying voters care about paychecks and hospitals and not tabloids. Platner initially tried to tell local reporters that the claims made by his former campaign official were not true. However, his own campaign staff immediately walked that back to reporters, clarifying that the explicit texts are real, but that Platner was just frustrated by the sensationalization of private life. Despite the personal misconduct, national progressive heavyweights are doubling down on their support because this seat is vital for control of the Senate. Platner is trying to unseat Republican incumbent Susan Collins. Senator Bernie Sanders actively defended Platner, telling reporters on Capitol Hill that the media needs to focus on the working class rather than Graham Platner's marriage. He explicitly stated, "I wish their marriage the very best, but right now I think we should be focusing on the crises facing the working class and electing people with the guts to stand up to the oligarchs." Senator Ruben Gallego and Martin Heinrich, along with Elizabeth Warren and Ro Khanna, are also defending him. Gallego echoed the economic pivot, claiming Americans facing high inflation and gas prices are not going to care about text messages. Warren completely deflected by attacking Susan Collins instead.
Well, you knew Bernie Sanders and the left would rally behind a communist.
Yep. Now, here's what John Fetterman had to say when he was asked about Platner.
Should Graham Platner drop out of the main Senate race?
P. Hustle. Yeah, he's around. Apparently, we didn't match up on Kick, so we're not. I guess we're not going to meet with them on that.
You're not meeting with them.
Like what kind of a creeper has been on a decade on a platform like Kick and send a dozen explicit kinds of messages and who knows what else. The thing he has going for him is the long. It's so long, you lose count of all the things. It's every other day there's a new one.
Should he drop out?
That's up to Pennsylvania. That's up to Maine. I'm Pennsylvania, so but that's here we are, and who wants to defend those things? I don't know, but I wouldn't.
He called him P. Hustle. That's some pretty good jokes from Fetterman there.
So we have a guy with a Nazi tattoo that he covered up and a sexting scandal. It does make it more difficult to vote for someone who isn't a good person. There are clearly issues with this guy. He had a Nazi tattoo for 10 years before the cover-up.
I thought he had it for like 20 years before he covered it up.
Oh, maybe he did. That wasn't a mistake, that was a decision. He woke up every day and saw it for years before he covered it. We talk all the time about the left not policing their own the way they do with Republicans, and here is another example of that. Fetterman is clearly the only one with common sense.
I just don't understand how you have that tattoo for even, let's say it's 10 years. You have that tattoo for 10 years, and at no point in that 10 years did you ever run across someone at a pool or the beach or in a gym locker room or in a picture where your shirt is off. We'll get to that later. But at no point did you ever run into anyone where they saw that tattoo and said, buddy, what is that? Are you sure you know what that is? I don't think that's what you think it is. At no point, how did that never happen? It is absolute BS that he didn't know what that was. You cannot go into a tattoo shop and ask for something like that without the tattoo artist going, are you sure that's what you want?
Oh, he supposedly got it in Europe. I'm sure you could find a Nazi apologist tattoo artist over there. They wouldn't ask questions.
Yeah. Then we have the dummies on The View. Co-host Sunny Hostin went on an absolute tear against Platner's character. She called him a liar, a racist, an anti-Semite, and a homophobe. But in the very next breath, she argued that Democrats must vote for him anyway to act as a check on the White House. Her exact rationale, quote, character does matter, but the only way we can maybe bring a bit of our democracy back is by having a Congress that functions. And I do think that one of the only ways is to win that seat in Maine, end quote. Alyssa Farah Griffin and Sarah Haynes argued he is entirely unfit for office, pointing out that the text messages are actually the least disturbing part of his background. Platner has a long history of deeply problematic behavior that the left is overlooking. He carried a tattoo associated with Nazi imagery, like we said, on his chest for 20 years. Yeah, 20 years, in fact, only covering it up in late 2025 after it caused a public outcry. He then blamed his time in the Marines for not knowing what it meant. Resurfaced Reddit posts showed him calling the U.S. Army fat, lazy trash and mocking a Purple Heart recipient who took fire to save his team, saying the soldier should have died and survived only because the enemy had bad aim. Past posts showed him using anti-gay slurs, calling himself an avowed communist, minimizing military sexual assault, and giving highly offensive advice to avoid rape. This guy is a walking red flag. How can Sunny Hostin sit on that desk and call Trump a racist and sexist and all these other things, and then say the exact same things about Graham Platner, but then still tell you to go vote for him? How can the party of Believe All Women support this guy? How can they ignore all this stuff just to take the most vanilla milquetoast Susan Collins Senate seat? We talked about this on the last episode. This is cult behavior.
It's always funny when The View says character matters. They rip Trump and say you shouldn't vote for someone like him, but Platner is fine. It's clear they only care about power. I thought he had the tattoo for 10, but you're right. It does say he got it in 2007. Just wow. I know you have tattoos, Mike. Who gets a tattoo of something they don't know about or understand? I really hope the people of Maine don't vote for a self-proclaimed communist, but this is the Democrat Party doing what it does best, keeping anyone around until they are no longer useful to the party. We saw it with Eric Swalwell. We saw it with Joe Biden. How much more will come out about this guy? And will it be enough for Democrats to say they need a new candidate? I think at this point, they're kind of stuck with him, and the party's going to try to hide most of it. But somebody out there on the left clearly doesn't like him. His former campaign staffers were almost certainly not Republicans.
Yeah, and like we mentioned earlier, we got a little chuckle out of the P hustle that John Fetterman called him. That was part of more bad press that came out on Platner the last few days. This is the worst part. The Wall Street Journal and the New York Post dropped a massive confirmation on an app that he was using. Platner wasn't just sending standard text messages to women that weren't his wife. He was actively using Kik, an app notorious for anonymous hookups and casual encounters. Platner's Kik handle is phustle0331. This is a direct match to the phustle username that he uses on Reddit to post all of his other controversial, crude comments. His active profile picture on the app is a shirtless mirror selfie taken in a bathroom where he's wearing nothing but a towel wrapped around his waist. While his face is cropped out of the photo, media outlets easily verified that it was him by his distinct arm tattoos. However, his hand in the photo is strategically placed on his chest in order to cover up the exact spot where his controversial Nazi tattoo used to be. Platner's campaign tried to cover for him by claiming that he had deleted the app from his phone. However, reporters did a simple digital wellness check and proved that the account itself was never deleted and remains active. In fact, trackers showed the account has been active for over nearly a decade. Forbes and the National Center on Sexual Exploitation have openly branded Kik as a predator's paradise. Roughly 60% of the app's active monthly users are teenagers and young adults aged 13 to 24, and the platform has been plagued by endless grooming and pedophilia scandals because it doesn't require a phone number or verified email to register. This weekend, Platner stood next to his wife in Portland, Maine, and explicitly told reporters that the Wall Street Journal and New York Times reports were gossip and journalistic malpractice without any evidence.
If the New York Times is reporting on a Democrat and it's a negative story, it's almost certainly true. They are happy to hide and cover up for Democrats. They'll never do it for a Republican. If they come out and say that a Democrat has all these problems, it's probably accurate.
It's a pretty bold move to claim that there's no evidence when your own campaign staff already admitted to the media that all those texts were real. Then your wife puts out a 5-minute video admitting that you went to marriage counseling over it, and a picture of you in a towel is currently sitting on a live hookup app for the whole world to see.
Platner employing the deny it until you no longer can strategy. I think you'll agree with me on this, but if you are consistently doing or saying things day after day for a long period of time, you truly believe in it and believe it is right. He knew to cover the tattoo in the profile picture, so even if he didn't know what it meant when he got it, which I highly doubt, he learned what it meant at some point. There are clearly character issues here, and we'll see what Maine decides to do with it.
Yeah, he sounds like a real piece of work. Now, speaking of piece of work, we have to talk about the riots and protests outside Delaney Hall. Delaney Hall is a 1,000-bed immigration detention facility in Newark, New Jersey. The demonstrations began in mid-May 2026, sparked by claims from immigrant advocacy groups that hundreds of detainees inside the facility had launched a hunger strike. Advocates and family members alleged severe and inhumane living conditions inside Delaney Hall. Congressional delegations who toured the facility reported instances of spoiled food, extreme medical neglect, including allegations of untreated miscarriages, and disease outbreaks like lice and the flu. The Department of Homeland Security and ICE have flatly denied that a hunger strike is taking place. Officials maintain that detainees are receiving 3 standard meals a day and comprehensive medical care, calling the allegations categorically false smears meant to incite unrest. What began as peaceful demonstrations quickly turned into aggressive blockades. Protesters formed human chains and used trash cans, concrete blocks, and umbrellas to build makeshift barricades to stop vehicles and staff from entering or exiting the facility. The tactical response from federal ICE agents, clad in helmets and protective vests, was aggressive. They deployed batons, tasers, and chemical pepper spray to break up the lines. Tensions boiled over midweek when a demonstrator threw an umbrella at an officer, triggering a chaotic case where agents deployed pepper spray indiscriminately, hitting several journalists, and tased a fleeing protester. Acting U.S. Attorney General Todd Blanche later shared photos of federal officers who suffered bloody wounds and severe bruising from projectiles, stating, "These riots are clearly not peaceful protests. Assault a federal officer, you'll be held accountable." In an effort to lower the temperature and remove federal agents from direct combat with locals, New Jersey Governor Mickey Sherrill deployed the New Jersey State Police to take over perimeter security, forcing ICE agents to pull back inside the facility fences.
Here we go again. It seems like the left cannot actually do a peaceful protest. Fiery but mostly peaceful is their game. It will never make sense to me why Americans would want to go out and support someone who has already broken the law. I'm not standing in the way of law enforcement for someone I don't know. I wouldn't do it for someone I did know. If you break the law, you should suffer the consequences.
Yeah, all of this kind of stuff happens because people like Hakeem Jeffries get in front of a camera and say the dumbest thing that come to their mind.
Can you tell me specifically what did you see and witness during your visit that convinced you that Delaney Hall has to be shut down?
Listen, Donald Trump promised that immigration enforcement in this country was going to target violent felons and the worst of the worst. That's not what has happened. Taxpayer dollars are being used to brutalize or kill American citizens, which is what we horrifically saw happen in Minneapolis, or to violently target law-abiding immigrant families. Not a single person who we spoke with at Delaney Hall yesterday was a violent felon, someone who had been convicted of a crime or presented a danger, as far as we can tell, to the community. In fact, we spent a good amount of time with an 18-year-old girl who was a month away from finishing her high school graduation and has been detained now in Delaney Hall 4 months, who also appears to be here on a U visa, which is available for juveniles, and has been ripped away from her family, including her 2 children, siblings, who are here as American citizens. We also spent some time, talking to a whole lot of folks with serious medical conditions who clearly have not gotten basic medical care. Now, immigration enforcement in this country, it should be fair, just, and humane. And nothing that we saw at Delaney Hall or that people have previously experienced at Delaney Hall suggests that that is what is taking place. And that's why we believe it should be shut down.
Trump said he would go after the worst of the worst first, but he would ultimately get rid of all the illegal immigrants. That is why we voted for him. That is what we want. We are for legal immigration. We need to vet the people to make sure they won't try to destroy our nation from the inside. Jeffrey's out here with the false claims as well. They can't name a single American citizen who has been deported. This all goes back to what we have said before. The left sees these people as potential Democrat voters, so they want them here. They also don't see crossing the border illegally as a crime. They don't want us to have borders, yet they all go home and lock themselves inside their houses. Borders for me, but not for you.
Yeah, Democrats love to bring up January 6th, but for some reason, they don't realize that they have had thousands of January 6th-like events since 2016. Right now, it just so happens to be in New Jersey instead of D.C. Once again, though, we have people rioting in the streets to protect people who broke the law. They don't belong here. I don't care about the circumstances. There's a right way and a wrong way, and if you do it the wrong way, you gotta go.
Having martyrs can be a very useful tool. We discuss propaganda all the time. It is a very powerful tool. But the Democrats have a bizarre way of picking their martyrs, don't they? They idolized Michael Brown after he was shot by police, despite the fact he was a criminal who had just committed a crime and was trying to steal a police officer's gun. They love George Floyd, but again, criminal. They accuse the right of all the things they do. They say go out to the street and fight, and that is what their followers do.
Yeah, I want to circle back too, because I was thinking about this. The people that said that they toured the facility and said that it was in bad shape and they were getting bad food and stuff like that, that's just because they looked at the food and said, ew, I wouldn't eat that. As someone who worked in a jail and saw the food that they eat, it is not bad food. It is edible food. But yeah, it's gross. It's produced in a mass quantity for a bunch of people. It's not the greatest tasting thing.
And it's not like you're cooking for a paying customer. You're trying to do this on a budget as well.
Yeah, it's
not a
supposed to
5-star
taste
meal.
good.
It's not a 5-star meal.
Yeah. Then we have Governor Mickey Sherrill establishing First Amendment zones or 1A zones on the streets of Newark for protesters to demonstrate peacefully. Do you think that worked?
Of course not.
Of course. Of course it didn't. State troopers set up physical barriers with concrete blocks to build the designated demonstration zones. This was supposed to replace the ICE agents who were guarding the perimeter. And of course, the protesters took those metal barricades and concrete blocks and used them as weapons against law enforcement. It's like putting a toy in front of a toddler and telling them not to touch it. The governor stated the zones were intended to preserve the First Amendment right to protest while keeping both the demonstrators and the facility staff safe. She framed it as a necessary step to lower the temperature. You know what would actually lower the temperature? Arrest all of these idiots. Stop letting them get away with it.
I'm glad she said lower the temperature, but her efforts to actually do it were always going to fail. Why would the people who were rioting do it in the space that you set up for them? They know what they are doing, and they know it's illegal. That is why they often wear face coverings, so you can't take a picture or video of them and find their identity. They get to break the law and then run away and don't get caught. The solution to this, from a federal government's perspective, is somewhat simple. Buy land across the country, or use the land you already own, and build facilities on federal property. If someone comes onto that property, you arrest them. Simple. It won't be, of course, because the left will go riot when it comes out that they're trying to build a detention facility.
Yeah, of course it didn't calm things down. It got so bad that the mayor of Newark enacted a nightly 9 p.m. curfew within a half-mile radius of the facility. Again, did they really think that was going to work? They weren't protesting in the protest zones, so why would they listen to the curfew? They never do. The law-abiding citizens are not the ones that are out there protesting. Why don't we ever see stuff like this in Republican cities? Why is it always the liberal cities?
People in Republican cities go to bed because they have to go to work the next day. We also don't want the criminals in our community, so we let law enforcement do their jobs. Also, we don't have cashless bail, so they don't do it and then run back out into the streets. They know there's consequences if you do this in a place like Florida. I saw a video a few years ago in New York where an illegal immigrant had stolen goods from a store, and they asked him why he didn't move to Florida where the weather is nicer. And the guy says if he did that in Florida, they'd throw me in jail. They know. They are criminals, but they're not completely stupid. They just have no morals.
Yeah, this whole thing it's quite ridiculous. We see it all the time, and it's always moving around from city to city, and nobody ever does anything about it. Like, why are these Democrat politicians in these cities, why are they okay with this stuff happening in their city? Like, it doesn't make any sense. You are hurting yourself by allowing these people to burn down your city. You're taking money away from the taxpayers of your city. But I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter to them because the left will vote for them anyway.
Well, yeah, and we saw it in Wisconsin with George Floyd. They went out into the streets and rioted and were burning businesses down that were owned by minorities. How does that help the people you claim you're helping? It doesn't. A peaceful protest can make a difference, but rioting doesn't help you. You alienate the people that you're trying to convince vote with you.
Wasn't it in Wisconsin as well that, I think it was a CVS or Walgreens, I'm pretty sure it was CVS, that was in a bad neighborhood they were getting stolen from all the time, so they finally just decided, we're losing too much money, we're shutting it down. And then they protested and rioted because CVS wanted to leave. Like, of course they want to leave. They're not making money. That's the whole point. You're stealing from them. Why wouldn't they leave?
Yeah, there's common misconceptions, but the first thing to do if you want to turn a bad area around is actually increase the amount of law enforcement. Nobody starts a business in a bad area. You start it in a good area where it's safe for people to be there.
Yeah, anyone opening a business when they're looking for a brick and mortar store, location, location, location. That's what they're looking at. They're looking for the best location for their store. And they certainly don't want to open a business around the corner from a place where they know there's a lot of crime. Like, why would you want to do that?
Yeah, you have to make the area safe for a business to thrive. We see it with California all the time. We are fortunate, I guess you could say, to be living in an area where the milk isn't behind a locked glass door. If your CVS has something like that, your community is abusing that store. Eventually, the business will lose so much money and it will leave.
All right, well, that is enough of that. It is time for our weekly blind ranking. Matt, today you are ranking politicians you would want as your governor. This list has a theme, and this should be a massive hint. Every person on this list was mentioned in our episode today. So keep that in mind. Are you ready?
Oh boy, let's go. We didn't talk about a lot of good people.
We did not talk a lot about a lot of people or a lot of good people. So your first name is Karen Bass.
One of the most incompetent people out there. Couldn't run a city, so wouldn't want her in charge of a state. I'm going to go number 4, knowing who we talked about today.
All right. Next up, you have Graham Platner.
That will be number 5. I'll take the incompetent person over the communist.
All right. Next up, you have Mickey Sherrill.
Not a great one. I'm going to go not good, but I think I have to go number 1. I don't think there's any good names on the list. So I'm going to hedge because I feel like Jeffries is going to be one of the names.
All right. Next up, you have Nithya Raman.
Yeah, that's going to be number 3. Don't know a lot about her, but hedging my bets here.
All right. And in your number 2 spot, sadly, you have Spencer Pratt.
Too bad.
I thought that you were going to put Mickey at 3 and then have Nithya at 2. I thought you would literally go 4, 5, 3, 2, 1.
Well, we talked about a lot of bad people. I didn't think there were going to be many good ones, and I didn't think you'd put one in there. Almost got it right.
Almost. So close. All right, everyone. That's it for episode 62 of the Republic Brothers podcast. Before you click away, please hit the subscribe or follow button. New episodes drop every Monday and Thursday. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.